that being said, guys, tonight we're going to be talking about the ethics around the business and what it means to have your insurance license. I'm going to go over a couple different examples of things that I've seen happen and things that have actually happened to me in the business. I'm not going to use any names. I'm not going to use any carriers. I'm not going to use any, and there'll be some people on this call that I might use something that happened to you as an example. But when I got into the business, guys, I was very, very excited to make money. I was very, very excited about the opportunity, and people did not tell me as much as I wish they would have told me about the ethics of the business and what it means to have your insurance license and what you're allowed to do and not allowed to do, okay? And what the implications are if you do these things. So I want to talk about some of that tonight, just so you guys are aware. And I'm never the person that's like, oh, Marissa never told me that, right? Marissa never taught me that. Marissa never told me that I couldn't do those things. So when the Department of Insurance gives you a license to practice the things that we practice, and you go through those testing things and we take the test and then we forget about everything we learned, all that stuff that we learned, guys, the reason you have to take that test and the reason you have to go through a background check and the reason you can't have this, crazy, insane criminal record and things like that is because insurance and life insurance, even more importantly, is one of the most highly regulated industries in the world, okay? And especially in the country. And you can lose your license and you can get fired from carriers for doing things that you're not supposed to do. So I want to go over a couple of those things tonight. And then at the end, if we have time to ask questions or you guys want to shoot me a message, we can go. There's some things that, again, not everything's going to be perfect. There's going to be some things that you're just going to have to mess up as you get going. But I want to make sure the basics are covered, okay? So first thing in the first, guys, is we have been talking a lot about persistency, okay? Persistency is how long your business stays on the books, okay? So if I go write 10 cases and 2 of them fall off, that's pretty standard. Okay, the carriers understand that. Department of Insurance understands that. Not everybody keeps what they buy, right? A lot of times you buy stuff, you're like, I don't like it. They understand that policies are going to get replaced sometimes. They understand that people are going to not keep everything. That's why they say around 20 to 30%, okay? So if your persistency, and they do that on a 6-month basis, okay, and then they do that again on a 13-month basis, okay? The reason they do it on a 13-month basis, guys, is because they want to make sure that your policies are staying on past the chargeback period, okay? They want to make sure, guys, and first and foremost, remember that we're in this to serve clients. So if a big chunk of your business is falling off, that's not good. That's not like a good thing where you're like, hey, I got paid the premiums and I got paid money, but then it all fell off down the road and I don't really care. That's not a good thing, because at the end of the day, your client is not protected. If your client cancels their policy, which again, you can't save them all, but if the majority of your clients are canceling their policies, that's not a good thing, because that means the majority of your clients are going uncovered, right? They didn't see the value in what you got them. So a 30% rate is going to be pretty good. You can probably get away, right? And some of that stuff can be coached, right? You don't want to push through policies that aren't going to stick. If you think someone's not going to pay it, it's better off to not push it through, okay? Because what happens is when your persistency drops below a 60%, or I believe now is 65%, right? So that would be 4.5 cases falling off out of every 10 that you write over a long-term basis, okay? This isn't in your first month. This isn't like, oh my goodness, I wrote 3 this week and they all fell off. That's on there. Over a long-term basis, 6 months, 12 months, and then 13 months is going to be the main indicator. If more than 60% of your business is falling off, then the carriers are going to fire you. Okay, and they're going to fire you because they don't believe that you're a good representation to market their product, right? So when they look at Desi and they're like, every time Desi writes a client, it stays on the books, but then every time, Nicole writes a client, it falls off. They start to wonder, like, who are the agents that we want to represent our business and why are they all falling off after so many months? Also, please keep in mind that what's really important, guys, is that I'm just going to be transparent. The carriers have to make money too, right? So if all of their business is falling off the books, the insurance companies could not stay in business, and they can't stay in business with agents like that. Okay. So first and foremost, guys, now we do a lot of different things on coaching on persistency. So we're not going to go over that tonight. We'll do a different call, or if you guys need help on, hey, Marissa, more of my business is falling off than I would like to. We can get on a one-on-one, or we can talk about, well, you need to talk to them about the premiums. Maybe you're overselling them. Maybe you forgot to tell them that the policy is going to draft. Maybe you didn't go over some different things with them. Not necessarily that you did wrong, but there is some coaching we can do there. Okay. So first and foremost, your guys' persistency. And I think people don't realize that we talk about it and it is important, but they don't realize the consequences. Now, if you get fired for persistency, there's nothing I can do to get it back for you. Okay. So if the carriers come to me and they say, hey, all of Nicole's business is falling off, we're going to fire her, right? And I'm like, well, I can maybe get you back one time and be like, hey, I can try to coach her and I can try to help her and we can go over her sales process and things like that. But eventually they're going to be like, we just can't keep an agent like that. Okay. So just so everyone's aware on that, that's how important persistency is. They don't just say this stuff to say it. Okay. All right. The second thing, guys, of what you're not allowed to do. Let's talk about annual reviews. Okay. A lot of you guys, and not a lot of you, but a lot of people will talk about doing annual reviews. Okay. What is an annual review? Okay. An annual review is where you call clients that you've previously helped. You see if their situation has changed and you can add coverage anywhere. Can you add coverage to a beneficiary? Is their financial situation different where in the past they needed $30,000 and now they need $50,000? So you can add another policy on top of what they already have. Okay, maybe you got Mary a policy and then you call Mary back and Mary's like, hey, I forgot to tell you, I bought a house. Like I actually need more coverage than what I thought I did. Cool, let's get her another thing. Then you're like, Mary, over the last year, I mean, can we look for IULs? Can we look for annuities? Can we do that? Okay. Now, what you're not doing, you guys, you cannot go through your book of business and say, nice, these guys have had Americo for 13 months and now it's past the chargeback period. I'm going to go through and write them all Mutual of Omaha. You cannot cancel all their policies and write them a different carrier. That is what's called churning your own business. And churning your own business, you guys, is illegal. Okay, it's not unethical, it's illegal. Okay, the insurance department will take your license if they catch you doing that. You have to be able to make an argument that the policy was better for the client. Okay, and a lot of times when something's Des, what's the contestability period? Everyone should know what the contestability period is.
2 years.
Okay, what does that mean?
So that just means if something happened to the client after, or if they had their policy for longer than 2 years, then the insurance carrier can't not pay them or pay the family.
Correct. They're not going to investigate the claim. Okay.
Correct.
So in the first 2 years of any policy that you write and any policy in all of life insurance, okay, there's a 2-year contestability period. So what that means is if we write a policy on Des and Des passes away within 2 years, we are going to investigate that entire claim. We're going to make sure that all the questions were answered correctly. We're going to make sure the agent did everything by the book. We're going to make sure that the agent, that the client didn't lie about anything. We're going to make sure that everything was good to go as it should have been when the policy was issued, and then we're going to pay the claim. Okay. After the 2-year mark, the insurance company can't ask any of those questions. They're going to pay the claim no matter what. So if you have a client that is 1 year already into the contestability period with a carrier, and you take them out of that policy and put them into another policy because it was a quote unquote better policy for whatever reason for them, and now they start their contestability period over. Is that ethical? Not really. Very few times. Okay. So just so everyone's aware of that, if you go through your book of business and you're like, let me cancel all my Americos and let me write, they will fire you because they will say that's unethical. And let me be really, really frank with you guys. If you do that to enough clients and enough clients find out, here's what's going to happen. You're going to have a bunch of death claims, and not because all your clients are going to die, but you're going to have death claims, and the family will tell the insurance company, hey, not to be weird or anything, but we had a policy 2 years ago that was past the incontestability period. And then when Desi called us, she didn't tell us about that. And so now we have this other policy that you're telling me isn't going to pay my family because they investigated a claim and something wasn't right. They're going to be like, what the heck? And they're going to say, you know whose fault that is? That's Desiree's fault. Let's file a complaint to the Department of Insurance. And clients, and you get enough complaints to the Department of Insurance, you're out of here. Okay. So I'm telling you guys this to let you know that your insurance license is awesome because you can make a lot of money with it and you can have a lot of impact with it. But if you lose it, it's not something you want to play around with. Okay. It's not something that's just like, oh, this is for funsies, because eventually if you have clients that are complaining about you, if you have clients that are sending in Department of Insurance complaints because you did this to too many people, we're going to have a problem. Terry put and you can be sued. Okay, now again, you're not going to do it over one time. If you called somebody and they need to save a little money and whatever, there's going to be certain things that you're going to have to push through, and that's just the name of the game. Can't do everything perfect. Okay, I'm not saying that. But if you make a habit out of doing the wrong things or things that you're not supposed to do, clients can say, well, the reason we didn't get paid this death claim is because the agent replaced a policy that shouldn't have been replaced. Okay, that leads me to my next thing. Okay, so churning your own business, you can't do. So when you do annual reviews, you're looking to add coverage or make the situation better for clients. Okay, same thing, guys, replacement forms. Now, I'll be really candid with you guys. All the time would just always put like, no, not replacing anything, not replacing anything, not replacing anything. But the reality is, guys, if you are replacing something and you know you're replacing something, you got to be filling out the correct forms. Okay. So make sure you guys are doing that as well. Okay. The other thing, guys, leading me to with that is that churning your downline business. Okay, so let's say you hire an agent and they decide to leave the company and you want to call and replace all their policies, you also can't do that. Okay, now, if you want to call and do annual reviews on their clients, okay, and actually see if you can add coverage because that agent no longer works in the business or something like that, or you know the policy is lapsed and that agent's no longer here and you want to call and say, hey, John, I saw that your policy is lapsed. Is there anything I can do to help it get him back in place? Anything to get the coverage back in place, or the policy's not paid, or they need new coverage because of whatever, and you can help them get that back on the books, that's fine. Okay, but you also can't call policies of agents who have left or agents who have not been here for a while and just start replacing business because they don't work here anymore. Okay, now that's more from a manager standpoint. You'll also get in trouble for that. Okay, if any of you guys have noticed, I had a couple of you guys text me and say, hey, Americo took away all of our client information. Why do you think they did that? Because people were calling the old clients and saying, hey, well, let's get you a new policy. You can't do that. Okay, it has to make sense for the client. It has to be ethically good for the client. You can't just call whoever you want and just say, hey, let's replace the business. Okay, same thing with the 2-year waiting period, you guys. So if someone has cancer and they got a, let's say whatever, they got a AIG graded, okay, and they've been paying on that policy and they're in a 2-year waiting period before the thing comes up, and they've been paying on that thing for 18 months, and you call them and you're like, hey, John, glad to hear you have AIG and you're in the 2-year waiting period. Glad to hear you've been paying it for 18 months, but that policy sucks. Let me get you into Great Western Guaranteed because I want to make a sale. You just took that client out of 18 months. They're 6 months away from being able to have that full death benefit if they pass away, and you started them over in 2 years. Okay, you can't do that. Okay, if they want an extra policy, get them an extra policy, but do not advise your clients to cancel policies that they've been paying on for a long time unless the policy is actually not a good policy. Okay, now follow me here, guys. Okay, on the flip side, you call a client, and the client's like, I've had this policy for 10 years. And you're like, how much is it, John? Well, it's $9 a month. And you're like, how much coverage is that? And you're like, oh, it's 250 grand. You know, John has an accidental policy. So you can be like, you know what, John, you have an accidental policy. I'm sorry your agent didn't tell you that because you're paying $9 for 250 grand. That just doesn't exist. Keep that or don't keep that. I don't really care. But I think what we should do is use your $9 and put that toward the premium of permanent coverage is actually going to pay you. Should you do that? Yes, you should do that. Okay, so please, guys, take what I'm saying and don't make it into something that it's not. Okay, I'm not saying don't help clients. I'm saying make sure when you are helping them, you're being 100% transparent with them about that you're actually helping them and you're not hurting clients, because that's not what we're here to do. Okay. Anybody have any questions about anything we've talked about up to this point?
I have a quick question.
Go ahead, Dom.
So what if something has a 2-year wait period, does the contestability start once their coverage starts or at the start of the 2 years?
Nope, start of the 2 years, right? When the application is written, just like any other policy. Okay. Vincent, replacements form will be from each of the carriers. And some states have different things. Now, Vincent, I want to be clear on this. If you're replacing a policy that you know the information about, fill out the replacement form. If they have some wackadoo policy that they don't know anything about, you're not going to have the information, so you're not going to know what to put on the form. I'm not saying you have to do it every single time, but if you know the information for the policy that you're replacing and you know it's going to be replaced, just use your head on that one, right? Like, I'll give you a good example. I did just replace one of my clients. I took them out of a term policy because they wanted an IUL. And I didn't realize, like, oh, I have to fill that out because I'm replacing my own policy and I want people to know that I'm doing everything by the book. Because I was like, I'm not trying to churn my own business. I'm not trying to cancel. This is actually the client wants a permanent coverage. They wanted a term before it made sense, as before we knew about IUL. So I'm like, hey, I'm going to replace this because I think it's more important. And the client thinks it's more important for them to have a permanent IUL where they can build cash value, and they're not going to need this term policy anymore. So I filled out the correct forms to make sure that the carrier knows I'm not trying to do anything sneaky. I'm trying to do it by the book. And they're like, cool, sounds good. So a lot of times, guys, it's really just like covering yourself to make sure that if there's a paper trail, you know what it is. Okay. So each carrier is going to have their own, and some states are going to be different. Some aren't going to require a replacement form. Okay. Again, if you're replacing a mumbo jumbo policy that you don't know anything about, you'll probably be fine. Okay. So I'm just want you guys to start thinking about this stuff so that way you don't cut any corners and get messed up on something that you didn't mean to get messed up on. Okay. All right. Next thing, guys, signatures. You can't sign for the client. I really don't know how else to put it. Okay. If a client says I'm having technical difficulties and you got to do it 1 or 2 times here and there, I'm still not super recommendation of it, because if you continue to do it, they're going to ask, right? And they always call me first. Hey, we just noticed that, hey, all your agent wrote 3 policies and then they all have a squiggle line for the signature. Do you think that's weird? I'm like, yeah, I do think that's weird that all 3 clients are different and they all have a squiggle line for the signature. And most of the time I call the agent and I say, why do they all have the same signature and why'd you sign for them? And no one's trying to do anything wrong. They're just like, oh, the client was having technical difficulties, so I didn't think it was a big deal. It is a big deal. Okay. It is a big deal. You can't do it. So you need to do everything in your power to be able to have the client sign their policy. Now, if you run into some, ridiculous thing, you might be able to call the carrier, see if they can do a voice signature over the phone, or ask the carrier, hey, what can I do? The client can't get the virtual signature. I mean, do I need to have an agent run out to their house? Like, what can I do to make sure that this person is actually signing? Okay. So you can't sign that. Okay. You can't sign, you can't squiggle the line. I've had some people say, hey, they can't get the email signature. Can I send it to my own phone number? Guys, these carriers are very technologically advanced. They track the IP address that you're at. So they're going to track that you sent it to your own email address, or they're going to track that you sent it to your own phone number and then you sign the forms, guys. This isn't 1923. Okay. Can you ask the client to do it for them? I don't know what that means. You'll have to clarify that question. So the reality is the client has to sign it, bar none, and they're going to track the IP address of where it was signed. Okay. The other thing is that nobody's good at forging signatures, so they do look at the signatures and they do an audit every so often. So if you have 17 signatures that look the same, they're going to pull it and say, why do all these signatures look the same? And you're probably not going to have an answer, or your answer is going to be, I just thought it was no big deal. So I'm letting you guys know it is a big deal. Okay. You can't sign for the client. Okay. Don't just check the box. I know a lot of people are like, well, the carrier said I can just check the box. I know when Aetna had security question, guys, now they don't have security question signature. Why do you think that is? Because a bunch of people were just being like, oh, I asked the security question. And it's like, no, you weren't. You were just putting Mr. Jones in there for mother's maiden name. And the clients were calling in saying, I didn't sign that application. I didn't sign that application. I didn't sign that application. Okay. You'll eventually, like, it's not going to make sense. Okay. Again, guys, I don't think we need a big whole ordeal on that. Okay, next thing. And I used to do this one, guys. So that's why I'm being fully transparent with you on this. Having an agent write under your number, your agent code, your writing number. Okay, because you think it's no big deal. Again, it is a big deal, because if you have a death claim, okay, so if you have a new agent and they don't have writing numbers, and let's just say Desi, right? Desi calls me and she's like, hey, Marissa, I'm a new agent. I don't have my Americo yet, but this client would be able to qualify for Americo. Back in the day, what I would do, and I would never do this now, but I didn't know because no one told me. Okay, back in the day, I'd be like, yo, Des, I'll send you my Americo login. Just log in and write that under me. You cannot do that, guys, because what happens is when that client gets their policy in the mail, okay, or the client passes away, God forbid, they're going to send the statement to me and I'm going to have no idea what the heck happened with that client because I let Desiree write under my number. Okay. Or even worse, the client calls in and they're like, hey, why does my policy say Marissa when I thought the girl that I met with was Desiree? Okay. Or even worse, you're male, female, right? They're like, hey, I'm not sure why my policy says Marissa on here when I'm pretty sure the person that was out here was named Dominic. Why did I meet with a dude and my policy says Marissa's the agent? Like, that's not making sense to me. And then all of a sudden the carrier's like, hey, why did that happen? Okay. So if your agents don't have numbers yet, you cannot let them write under your code. Nobody can write under your agent code. Nobody should have your Americo password. That stuff is like as serious as your social security number in the insurance world. Okay. Now, if you split a commission with somebody, obviously you put that on the application. That's fine. If you say, hey, Marissa, I don't have an Americo number and this client wants Americo, I'm calling that client myself and I'm writing them. Okay. And I'm not paying you the commission for it. Okay, so the reality is I used to be like, yeah, I'll just Venmo you. But then again, what happens, guys, is that client charges back, then I have to rely on all this outside stuff that happened between Venmo and Zelle and all this weird stuff that I can't track. My accountant can't track. It's not tracked on my 1099s. I just wouldn't mess with it. Because if that client cancels, then I'm like, hey, Des, you owe me $500. And Des is like, I'm not paying you $500, dog. Sorry. Like, don't do that back end weird thing. Okay. If your agent has a number, they can write the carrier. If they don't have the number, they can't write the carrier. Straight up. And that sucks. And we'll try to get it for them. And if they don't have it yet, we'll do whatever. Same thing with state license, right? If people are like, do you have a state license? Do you have a license in this state? Can I write it under you? No, you can get your state license or I can write the client. But if I write the client, I'm calling the client to make sure they know that I wrote them. Because I'm not messing around with no death claims. Okay. All right, that should be pretty straightforward. Okay, here's another thing. Alex mentioned this in the comments, and this is really important. You must verify somehow that the client is alive. Okay, so if you have a daughter that calls you and the daughter says, hey, I want to get a policy on my dad, and you're like, cool, I'd love to help you with that. Where's your dad? And they're like, my dad's not home. And they're like, oh, is he cool with you getting the policy? And they're like, yeah, of course. He wants me to get the policy. He was totally cool with it. And you're like, can I talk to your dad? And they're like, no, you can't do it, guys. If you do not verify that that client is alive, you speak to that client and that client answers the questions, do not write the policy. Because again, you might get messed up and guys, I'm going to tell you this and I'm going to tell you some examples of all this stuff that has happened to me or to agents in our agency where we've had to kind of cover our butts and save our butts. Because here's the sad thing about it, guys. And I know as much as you love your clients, they will lie to you if they want to get the insurance bad enough. Okay. They will lie to you. Do not cut corners on that stuff. Okay. I'm going to tell you guys a situation. We're not going to say who it was. Okay. I had an agent. I don't even think he's on this call. He went to the client's house in person. This is before we had virtual. Went to the client's house. He's meeting with a mom and the son. Insurance is for the mom. He gets there. Lady's alive. Son's alive. Cool. Asks all the questions. Lady's like, here's my social security number. Here's my height and weight. He's calling her by name. She's answering. Everything's cool. Son's like, I'm going to be the payer because I really want to get this for my mom. Awesome possum. Everything's chill. He's like, love you guys. Catch you later. Okay. Leaves. Couple weeks later, client dies. They file a death claim with the company. And the agent's like, I'll get this taken care of for you guys right away. The insurance company's like, hey, bro, this is really interesting. At the time the application was written, your client was in the hospital in a vegetative state, and there's no possible way they could have signed this application. Agent's like, dude, I went to their house. I sat with the lady. They're like, did you verify the identity of the lady? And he's like, no, I mean, she was right there. She was answering my questions. They're like, yeah, the clients knew that the mom, so they had some lady, probably an aunt or a family member or a grandma, come in and pretend to be the mom because they wanted to get the life insurance because they knew the mom is in the hospital and she's going to die. And we want to make sure we have coverage. They're not going to pay the claim. And of course, the agent is like, dude, what do you mean? And they're like, did you verify the ID? And he's like, no, I didn't verify the ID. She was right there freaking talking to me. And they're like, well, you didn't verify the ID. So you just took the information from random person that you thought was her and it wasn't. So my point is, guys, it doesn't matter how close you think you are. You have to do your due diligence. I need to see your ID. I need to make sure. I would make all your virtual clients just send me a picture of your ID so I can at least verify whatever, just to make sure. Because they're like, this lady's been in a coma for 3 weeks. There's no way she did this application. Okay. So make sure, guys, and you think it's not going to happen until it happens to you. And then you're like, no, that client was super cool. And you're like, yeah, they super cool, just lied to you. And they'll get your license taken away because they don't care. They don't care about your license. So you have to make sure that you do the due diligence. Okay. Same thing, guys. Another situation. This is a recent situation. Okay. Yeah. And Larry said, it's about money laundering, terrorists, identity theft, things like that. So you have to be careful. Okay. Another situation recently in our agency, guys. Okay. Agent helps client and daughter and beneficiary, 3 policies on the family. Everything's cool. We're good. Okay. Everything's fine. They call back months later. and they're like, hey, we want to get some extra coverage. Agent's like, cool, dude. I've been with you guys. I saw you guys in person. I want to get you some extra coverage. Any changes in the health? No, nothing changes. We're ready to pay the premiums. Lock it in. They're like, okay, cool. Right? I've helped this family a bunch of times. They already know me. I've been to their house. They text me on a regular. We're cool. Everything's cool. These clients literally love me. I protected their family multiple times, multiple people. So he's like, I love these clients. They love me. Cool. Okay. Same thing. The beneficiary is like, hey, just lock it in. We're good to go. We trust you. We like you. We're good. Just put on another policy. Let's get another. Cool. Boom. Client dies. Okay. And they're like, hey, again, this client was in the hospital when he passed away. So how did this application get signed? How did this application not have that marked on the health? And the agent's like, they called me and wanted extra coverage. I've helped them a bunch of times. They would never put me in that position. But guess what? They did. And now we have to make sure that that agent isn't fired from the carrier. That agent has to issue a statement on how the application was signed to make sure, right? And again, that one's going to be like, you're going to get a slap on the wrist and it's going to be like, hey, we're fine. We're moving on. We're good. They're probably not going to get fired. But the reality is, like, we don't think it's going to happen because we assume that we trust the client. Especially if you've helped them before, you assume they're not going to call me and lie to me about their health changes. They're not going to call to me and lie to me because I've helped them a bunch of times before. They will. And then when they call the carrier to file the death claim and the carrier says, we're not paying the claim, they're going to say, well, the agent wrote the application. I don't see what the problem is. The agent did that. And the carrier is going to ask you, why'd you do that? Okay. So guys, always just cover your butt. Okay. Same thing with the health questions. Now, this is my personal story and this happened to me and this broke my heart and still breaks my heart to this day. Okay. I'm a new agent. This is on one of my very first travel trips. I go out to the house and meet with the husband and wife, sweetest people ever. To be honest, at that point, everyone just told me, just mark no to all the health questions. Okay. So I'm asking the basic ones. I'm like, you ever had a heart attack? No. They're like, no. I'm like, no, 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 no. On the Americo app, we're cool. I'm like, yeah, heart attack. No, you're not a smoker. Okay, cool. Everything's cool. Where do you get your prescriptions from? You get them from the VA. Sounds good. No, 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 no. We're rocking and rolling. I'm excited. Okay. This person passes away like probably 12 or 13 months into the policy. Wife calls me. She's like, my husband passed away. I'm like, I'm really sorry. Let me file the claim for you. Okay. I filed the claim. They're like, yeah, we're not paying that thing. The client at the time of application had liver cancer. I'm like, what do you mean? He never told me he had liver cancer. They're like, did you ask if he had liver cancer? I'm like, I'm pretty sure I asked, but I don't know. I don't know if I didn't ask or I don't know if he didn't tell me. But either way, it doesn't matter because the claim didn't get paid and the wife's calling me and she's like, hey, they're asking for documentation from his doctor. And I'm like, what kind of documentation? And she's like, they're asking from his liver doctor. And I'm like, liver doctor? What was wrong with his liver? And she's like, he had liver cancer. I'm like, since when? I'm like, did you not tell me that or did I not ask? Right. So again, my fault completely because I was a new agent and I was just like, boom, no, 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 no. And guess what? That claim didn't pay out to the family. And I feel bad about that. I feel awful about that because had I done my job better and I had made sure, and I didn't know, I was like, I would assume that I would have asked about that, right? Like cancer is a pretty big deal. I think I would have asked. Did they not disclose it? I don't know, but it doesn't matter whose fault it was. It was my fault because the claim didn't pay. Okay. And I should have been 100% sure that I should have said, I know I asked that question 1000%. I would never skip that question and I would never mark an answer without knowing 100%. So I should have been more confident and I should have been serious asking those questions. So for those of you that are like, I'm just going to mark no on all the health questions and see if I can get it through the underwriting. Guys, anybody that dies within 2 years of the policy, they're going to investigate the claim. They send you a statement. If you haven't had a death claim yet, every death claim you get, they send you a statement and they ask you, what was the relationship with the insured? Did you ask all the questions on the app? Did they report that they had this? Did they not? And that will happen, guys, every single time. So if you haven't had a death claim yet, I'm telling you, it's not just like a free for all where they're like, yo, here's $40,000, have fun at the carnival. They're going to do their due diligence to make sure everything was done correctly. Okay. Anybody have any questions about that? No? Okay. Couple other things, guys, just to make sure that you're kind of clear on everything because this stuff is very, very important. Don't just I don't know really a better way to put this other than just don't do dumb shit that you're not supposed to do. Okay. And our agency is very good and I'm very, very proud to work with you guys because I truly believe that we genuinely all care about our clients that we work with. And that means a lot to me. But Another example is this is somebody from outside of our agency was talking to somebody inside of our agency not too long ago. And the agent is talking to the agent in our agency, and they're like, hey, I'm on a different team, but you guys look like you're killing it and I really like your help. I'm submitting this application and blah, blah, blah. I just want to make sure everything is good. And our agent is like, why are you putting zeros for the bank account? And they're like, well, my upline told me to just put all zeros for the bank account and try to push it through the underwriting, then go back later and get the bank. And our agent's like, you can't just put zeros for the bank account. Like underwriting's going to kick it back. And they're like, yeah, I know, but that's the point. Underwriting is going to kick it back. And then I'm going to have time to go through and get the banking and then let the client know to see if they want it or they don't want it. And our agent's like, so your upline, your manager just told you to just put a bunch of zeros in, kick the policy through to underwriting, and then come back later and get the bank account. Like, you're literally not allowed to do that. Like, if they find out that you're just randomly putting in random bank account numbers because you couldn't get the real bank account, like, they're not going to be cool. And she's like, I don't know. My manager told me to do it. And I'm like, that's pretty like wacko that any manager ever would tell you to do that. But I mean, you're not on my team. So, I mean, you guys can get fired. I mean, that's not on me, but whatever. So my point is, guys, like, don't do dumb stuff because you think it's just like, don't do dumb stuff that's just going to cut the corners. Like, if you can't get the bank account, you can't get the bank account. If they didn't give you the social, you're not going to put in a random social and be like, sorry, I'll get it later and let me throw it into underwriting to see if it gets approved. Like, just don't, like, I'd rather submit less business that's going to be healthy business. That's going to be good business. That's going to be business that's going to, pay to our clients. Okay. Again, they'll probably charge back anyway because they didn't give you their dang bank account and you just want to throw it through for the submit numbers. Like, I don't even know why you'd want to do something like that. But I hear about these scenarios and I'm like, that's just wacky. But then I remember myself when I was a new agent. And I guess they didn't really tell me this stuff, right? I passed my test, got my license, started slanging insurance, and I was like, this is awesome. So I want to make sure that you guys understand that the tool we have in having our life insurance license is a big deal. And Mariana, that's a good point. That's why they implemented the banking information. Okay. Couple other things, guys. They will also know, like, if you submit too many policies with huge premiums or maxed out policies, they're going to want to know. That's weird that the last 10 of Digna's clients all wanted $350,000 of coverage. They're going to kick that back to me. They're going to call me and they're going to say, hey, Mirza, Digna submitted 10 policies and they all were $350K face amount. Do you think that's weird? And I'm like, that is pretty weird because usually 10 out of 10 clients don't need $350K. They're all maxed out. Okay. That's not going to happen. Okay. If they see same bank accounts or same addresses or same emails, okay, they will call you or they'll actually call me to verify and say, hey, Mirza, I need you to check on this to make sure that they actually are like a family member, right? So if you go to someone's house and you're like, hey, I'm writing the mom, the dad, and the brother, and they all use the same email address, cool. Like, they're all using the same email address. Or maybe the mom's paying for all of the policies, cool, same thing. But again, like, you need her signature. Okay, you need all that stuff. So you need the payer to have a payer signature. The payer actually has to sign. If the wife is on the phone and you don't hear the husband and the husband's getting the insurance, you got to talk to the husband and the husband has to sign. Okay. Same thing. If they say, hey, can you just sign for my husband? Can you write this for my husband? No, I can't do that. Sorry, your husband has to sign. I got to hear him on the phone, whatever it is. Okay. I'm going to be the payer of the policy. Okay. Just put my mom's bank account. Well, I need to talk to your mom to make sure she's cool with me putting her bank account on. And I need to have her sign the thing for the bank account to make sure. I don't care if she pays the policy. I don't care less who pays the dang thing, but I need to make sure that they're cool with that. So I can make sure you're not just randomly putting on people's banking information. Okay, so just do your due diligence, guys. And obviously, it's the same thing. They're going to wonder. They'll be like, hey, Marissa, this person wrote 7 policies with the same apartment address. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty weird. Why would 7 people? Then I call them and I'm like, they don't even live at that apartment. Right? Like, you can't, like, again, if it's family members and it makes sense, that's fine. But they flag everything. They get a thing in their system that says, boom, 3 policies with the same email address just came in. Boom, 3 policies with the same address just came in. We might need to see if there's anything weird to that. Boom, 4 policies with maxed out premiums just came in. Boom, 4 policies with the same bank account information just came in. We need to double check that these are actually linked to those bank accounts. So just double check, guys. Don't do anything. Don't cut the corners just to get yourself paid, because the problem is it's going to bite you. And then if you lose a carrier and again, I can do whatever I can to try to get it back for you if it was an honest mistake. Like, there's going to be some things where you're going to be like, I actually didn't mean to do that. And I don't think you did mean to do that. And I'll vouch for you and be like, dude, he didn't mean to do that. It was stupid. Like, it was an accident. We weren't trying to do anything weird. Give them this carrier back and they'll probably let you. Most of the carriers will. Okay. But again, time and time again, eventually they're going to be like, dude, that doesn't make sense. So just make sure you guys know that, like, they're too technologically advanced. You can't, and even over the past couple of years, guys, it's improved drastically. Right? You used to be able to write. And here's the reality of, guys, and people don't like this term. It is insurance fraud. It is insurance fraud. Okay. And we have had people, and it sucks to say, but we've had people at FFL that have had their take, and some people who went to like extreme lengths that like they've been literally arrested because they put fake bank accounts, fake social security numbers. They obtained the information illegally or whatever they did. Now, again, nobody on our team is doing that, but just so you guys know, this isn't like just a like funsy little license that they give you and they're like, yeah, good luck with that thing over there. And you're like, cool, homie, I'm about to go make 300 grand this year. So just guys, make sure that you realize that the license that you hold is very important and you don't want to do anything to mess with it. No commission is worth it. There's always another appointment. There's always another person. There's always another client to protect. We have millions and millions and millions and millions of people that can be protected. We don't need to do anything stupid. You don't need to do anything to just get paid. You don't need to push a policy through just because, right? Now, I want to talk about on the flip side, guys, you also don't need it. I'm just doing this because I want to do my due diligence to make sure that I let you guys know about persistency, that I let you know about signatures, that I let you know about identity verification so that you guys are extra careful. But I don't want you to also take what I said on this call and go crawl under a hole and be like, oh my God, I can't write insurance now because it's too scary. That's not what I'm saying. Okay, there's a lot of things that guys, there are some things that are going to be learning experiences. There are going to be some situations where you're like, oh, they do all have the same bank account. Cool. Let it happen, right? Or they do all have the same email address. Not a big deal. Or the wife was like, hey, like I had one the other day. The wife was like, hey, my husband like works all the time. And I was like, yeah, you can give me the information as long as I just need to call your husband. I need him to send me his identification. I need to call him and talk to him. I don't need to talk to him for 30 minutes. I don't need to talk to him for the entirety of the phone call, but I need to talk to him for 5 minutes to make sure we're all on the same page about this. And then I'll call you back and you can give me the information. We can go from there, right? So there's going to be some things. I'm not saying that you need to go way overboard and be psycho about it, and like crawl under a hole and be like, Marissa said, I can't write insurance because everything's so scary. I didn't say that. I just want to make sure that you guys know that you have the resources and that we do our due diligence as an agency. So that way, if any of these things ever happen to you, you're going to get a death claim and you're going to get a statement and you're going to be like, I didn't know I had to do a statement. And I'm like, yeah, guys, I told you. If you have any death claim within 2 years, and I've had a lot of them, and I'll be really honest with you guys, I probably had five, maybe even more within my first 2 years that were in the 2-year contestability period, and 3 of them paid out. And one of them was the one I told you about that, and I can't remember why the other one didn't pay out. But I think it was the same, it was something similar, like something didn't go through or whatever. Or I think the client did not tell me something on that one. But and Dom said it is an awful feeling because you're like, shoot, did I do that to just make commission? Did I do that to make a quick $1,000? And now the family thought they had insurance and they don't. And remember, guys, that a lot of what we use, and one last thing, a lot of what we use, guys, against other agents, we don't want to be that agent. Okay, we don't want to be that agent. Like when we call and we're like, hey, John, sounds like your agent didn't give you all the information up front and kind of sounds like your agent did some things shady on the back end. So let me help you. You don't want to be the agent that other people can say that about. You want to make sure that you have a good relationship with your clients. And that if another agent comes in to try to talk to them or another agent comes in to try to replace your policy, your clients are very clear. Heck no, I only work with Digna and nobody's talking to me about my policy except for Digna. You want them to have that faith in you. You want them to have that trust in you. You do not want anybody to be able to cast doubt. So don't do anything to cast doubt. Don't do anything to give them to cast doubt. Okay. And then the last thing, guys, is FFL policies. And I had sent a message about this in a couple of my group chats the other day. What I want to make sure the whole team knows. FFL, guys, we're all one big team. As much as I'm like, yo, screw those other agencies, we are all big one team. We all work under the same umbrella. We all have great products. We know how awesome products we have. If you know the policy was written by another FFL agent, do not replace it. Don't cause a chargeback for somebody else just because they're not on our team. If they wrote an Americo and Aetna's $3 cheaper, but you know somebody on another team wrote them and they're like, yeah, I know my agent works with Family First Life. And you're like, okay, let me just rewrite it anyway. Don't do that, guys. You wouldn't want anyone to do that to you. And let me tell you, if somebody does that to anybody on our team, and you guys know how much of a savage I am, I will literally get that person fired from every carrier I can possibly get them fired from. I literally pray for me because I will do that. If someone calls me and says, someone on another team replaced your agent's policy for no reason, I will be writing scathing emails to corporate. I will be calling the carriers and saying, I'll be calling Jeremy Thornton at Americo and saying, how can you let this happen? It's so ridiculous. Fire that agent. This can't be happening ever again. So I will go to bat for you guys for that. So do not do it to other people, because if somebody calls me and says, hey, your agent on your team is replacing all my policies because they think it's cute, I will say, I don't know what to tell you, because my team doesn't do that. Our team doesn't do that. And now again, some people have said, hey, they didn't know it was an FFL agent. If you didn't know and you didn't ask the right questions, and this client really has no idea about their policy, no idea about their agent, so you didn't mean to, and you're like, well, shoot, I got to get the client covered, but I don't really know who covered them. Cool, whatever, sounds good. We didn't know. But if you know that this was protected by an FFL person and you replace their policy because Aetna's $3 cheaper than Americo, and someone calls me and said, hey, someone on your team's replacing all my business and causing me a bunch of chargebacks, I will offer to fire you first, because I would never allow that to happen to you guys. I will lose it if someone does that to any of you guys. So don't be the people that do that to other people. I swear, I will make sure that agent can never work in the freaking insurance again, because that would piss me off so much. Okay, so don't do that to other people. If you know it's an FFL agent, don't replace it. Larry, can you unmute? I know you wanted to say something real quick.
Sure. I mean, if you want me to elaborate on that, I can.
Larry,
From a government,
I want you to elaborate, but I don't want you to like scare anyone thinking they're gonna be like
no,
arrested by the FBI.
no. I think it's important to piggyback off of something that you emphasized is it's nothing to be scared of. However, it's important to know that from FinCEN, which is the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, and NAIC, the Insurance Commissioners Organization, guidance has been put out from a government perspective to carriers just to be more to scrutinize these, because there has been a huge increase in activity with the insurance industry with the terrorists. Bottom line, and we need to be part of the solution to protecting our country, because it is real. I see it every day. It's real. So it's something not to take lightly. I mean, they're not out to get you. So it's definitely nothing to be scared of. It's just they're more worried about the bad guys trying to get us. And it's legit. So that's all I have.
And I love that. And real quick, Larry, just so you guys know, Larry isn't pulling this from one ear. Larry, I don't know if I'm able to say this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. You work for the Department of Homeland Security. Is that correct?
I did for 20 years, and I transitioned to another 3-letter agency.
Okay, another 3-letter. We'll leave it at that. But just so you guys know, Larry, I appreciate you elaborating on that. And we're lucky to have Larry in our agency, but he does actually legitimately like work for someone where he would know this stuff. So he's not just pulling this out of his, whatever, like, hey, let me just elaborate on this for you guys. This is like real. So Larry, thank you for sharing that with us. Like he said, we need to just be part of the solution and not part of the problem. And also we have Larry that has our back. So that's obviously a benefit. So that being said, you guys, if you have any specific questions, you guys can reach out to me directly. Again, I know this call went a little long, but I just want to make sure that we're part of the solution, not part of the problem. And that, every single day again, I think Diego said this at convention, conviction over commission. We can make a lot of money, guys, and we can get paid freaking fast. And the license we have is stupid what we can do with it. We have a license to print money. So make sure, guys, that you take care of it and that you take care of your clients and that you do your due diligence. And that when you think, let me cut this corner because I've done so many and it hasn't happened to me and this would never happen to me and it's all good. And I know these clients and I know this thing like the back of my hand and I'm a top producer and I don't got no problem. Make sure you guys just don't cut the corners, because I did it too many times. I tell you that from the bottom of my heart. I wish I didn't have clients that didn't get paid a death claim because I didn't do my job as I should have. And I wish, and same thing, right? Sometimes you trust clients and you're like, they would never do that. And then they did, they lied to you. So make sure you guys just go out of your way to do your due diligence. It doesn't matter if you get paid $0, that's good, versus, $10,000 that's going to fall off the books and it's going to put you in a bad spot. Then, what's better? So I love you guys. Anything I could do to help, remember the announcements that we went over today, and I will see you guys in 2 weeks, 2 weeks from today. And let's crush it, guys. And let's have our biggest month ever. And let's get some cruise qualifiers. All right. Talk to you guys soon.